Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Building the Black Educator Pipeline podcast. I am your host, Shayna Terrell, educator activist dedicated to the lifelong struggle of freedom and liberation for her people. Shout out to all my co-conspirators out there watching, supporting us week after week. We love you and we definitely appreciate you. And welcome to our new watchers and our new supporters. We have a treat for you this week. And as always, shout out to Citizens Ed and the Center for Black Educator Development for creating this platform for us to talk to real people in a real struggle, doing the real work. So today's theme, we'll be talking about building the Black educator pipeline and connecting with the youth. Today, we are going to be talking to an award-winning teacher, professor, and author about urban education, unlocking youth potential, and of course, we are going to throw some hip hop in there. So I'm super excited to introduce my guest today. Dr. Christopher Emdin is the Robert A. Nussland Endowed Chair in Curriculum Theory and Professor of Education at the University of Southern California, where he also serves as Director of Youth Engagement and Community Partnerships at the USC Race and Equity Center. He is also scholar and Guriat in resident at Lincoln Center of the Performing Arts. He previously served as Associate Director in the Institute of Urban Minority and Education and Director of Science Education Program at Teachers College at Columbia University. Dr. Emdin is an alumni fellow at the Hip Hop Archive and Hutchins Center at Harvard University and was the STEAM Ambassador of the U.S. Department State and Minorities and Energy Ambassador for the U.S. Department of Energy. Dr. Emdin holds a PhD in urban education with a concentration in mathematics, science, and technology, master's degree in both natural science and education, and bachelor's degree in physical anthropology, biology, and chemistry. He is the creator of the hip hop ed social movements, Science Genius Battles, and Create Accelerator. He was recently named one of the 27 people bridging divides in the United States by Time Magazine and the Root 100 list of most influential African Americans. He's the author of numerous award-winning books, including the award-winning Urban Science Education for Hip Hop and Generation and the New York Times bestseller for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. His latest book, Ratchetdemics, Reimagining Academic Excellence, and STEAM, make Dream Mayor currently available where books are sold everywhere. So as y'all can see, this brother is on point and doing the work. So please welcome Dr. Chris Emdin to the show.
What's going on, sis? Thanks for the amazing introduction. So glad to be here with you.
Amazing work. Okay.
Thank you,
You out
family.
here
Thank
doing,
you.
you giving me something to talk about. So
That's love.
appreciate
That's
you.
love.
Yes. But how you been? Been good?
I'm good, man. I'm out here in the mix doing the work, you know what I mean? Writing these books, writing these articles, but also, you know what I mean, in the hood with the young folks and with the educators and training them. So just, just doing the work on all levels. One of my mottos is stay low and keep firing. So I'm just trying to stay low and keep firing.
Listen, I like that. Listen, you in the mix, but you out the mix at the same time.
You already know.
Much appreciated. So we love to generally start off our show with asking our guests because we really feel like it's important to elevate people's stories. But if you could please share your journey with us into education, what inspired you to become an educator? How'd you get an education?
I come from a family of educators. My pops is a teacher. My grandma on my mama's side was a teacher. And I have just other family that have always sort of like pursued education. However, for me, I never had aspirations to be a teacher coming up. I'm a science geek and a nerd, you know what I mean? So, I always wanted to do something in the sciences or in technology. And when I went to school to pursue the sciences. So like you mentioned, my undergrad degrees are in the sciences. I triple majored undergrad. I couldn't get enough science. And then my master's is also in the natural sciences as well. And so I came up getting a credential in the sciences and doing research, etiology of schizophrenia research, mesenchymal stem cell research, and then going into the sciences and then found myself really unfulfilled. And I started noticing that the further along I went in science, I ain't seen nobody who looked like me. I ain't seen nobody from my hood. And it was really concerning that you do all this work to get to this place and then it's isolating because you're the only one. And I never believed in a concept that the only, the magical Negro who made it. Like, it just never was my thing. So I never understood why it was only me doing this work. And, I felt unfulfilled. Somebody said, yo, you should go volunteer in a school. You feel unfulfilled. They give you all this paper. Don't quit. Go volunteer in the school. You know what I mean? Like if you feel unfulfilled, do that like once a week. So I started off doing that, once a week in the after school program and the STEM program, working with young folks. And then I got the bug. I got the bug when, and I always tell a story. The first time you hear a bunch of children understand something they ain't get in school after you explained it. You know what I mean? You hear them go that, now I get it. And it sounds like angels singing. It feels like July 4th fireworks. Like, and I got the bug. I was like, man, I love this. And so, I started going into, I got my master's in education. I started going into teaching and I started telling my folks, like, I want to go teach now. And I remember the disappointment, even though I had educators in my family, the disappointment in the faces of the folks who loved me when I was telling them I was going into education. Like, nah, you making $100,000 at 24 in the science world. Like, why would you go? Are you tripping? Like, folks who were even in education telling me, why am I choosing education? And I remember like not understanding why they couldn't see what I saw. And for me, that's why I do the work I do today, because it's important for me to restore the reverence for those who teach, like the power of those who teach, you know what I mean? And I don't want our families to be dejected because we chose to teach, but rather to see that to teach is to do the work of the gods, to do the work of the ancestors, to follow in lineage and power. The teacher and the preacher historically are the ones who have the most power in our community. So I want to restore that swag to the art of teaching. And so I started doing that work, teaching middle school. I taught middle school science and math in the Bronx, New York, after doing
shout out. I'm from the South Bronx. Shout out.
X up. You already know what that is. You know what I mean? And then taught middle school and high school, helped to start a school, kept pursuing education work, went to get my doctorate, kept doing the work. And now I'm able to really walk in the fullness of being an educator, both in the classroom, outside the classroom, writing about it, speaking about it, doing it. But that's my education journey.
I love that. And I love that. It's so powerful because what it makes me think of, like in your mind, you're doing all of this science stuff, which is like the bomb, like to be a science nerd. So how inspiring is that for other young people to see you, right? Like, and they're like, yo, this dude is in the science, he in the math, like, yo, that's bomb. So you got that. And then the other piece of it that I think of when I think of you is like, you kind of carried that attitude of like, if not me, then who?
Facts.
Right? So to carry on that legacy, to carry on that journey of teaching and knowledge, like pedagogy, like if not me, then who? Right? Like if I'm not in this profession, if kids aren't seeing someone like me, then who? I think that's super dope to carry that. And again, with all the knowledge, all the degrees, all the money, you like, nah, like I'm supposed to be where these kids are. Like,
yo, you do what you love. You never work a day. And I always tell folks that I mentor, like the paper gonna come. Like there's a misperception that you gotta chase the bag. I'm like, don't chase the bag. Like be the bag. You know what I mean? Like see the worth of who you are, see the jewels in who you are. I love that Kendrick Lamar quote. Like I ain't got no jewelry on me, fam. I got the jewelry in me. You got the jewelry in you. You understand the self-worth. So if you secure you and you're full and whole and excited, like you attract what you need. Like sustenance will come when you chase what you love rather than the money. And then I also always tell folks, like, to teach is the work of the ancestors, but to teach does not mean that all you do is teach. Like as a people, we exist in a world where if you do what you love, you find other opportunities. You could do 2 things, 3 things, 4 things. Like I'm a scientist, I'm an educator, I'm a speaker, I'm a writer. Nothing sacrifices itself because I'm always operating on my truth and my power. And so like for me, it's about multiplicity of identity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Hybridized identities or your multiple selves at once showing up.
I don't have to be
doing what you love and understanding that the universe, folks don't like that universe talk sometimes, but the universe will sustain you when you operate with its divine plan. But you got to first tap into your divine plan. And if you don't tap into your divine plan, you always going to be struggling. You know what I mean? But if you tap into your authentic self and your divine plan, sustenance will come. And more than sustenance, but excess will come.
And those folks don't like that universe talk. You don't have to even think about it in a universal way, but you do need to think about life and what your purpose is and what are you supposed to be doing. Don't chase what other people are telling you. Don't chase what advertisement is putting in front of you. Chase your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, and don't be distracted from that.
Talk
and
that talk, sis.
And that's why people who are walking in their purpose are sustained by the universe. But I also love the concept that you're saying, like, listen, I don't have to be this one thing. Like, I'm a teacher, that's all I'm gonna do is teach. No, I'm a teacher, I'm a scientist, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a mentor, like all of those things, but combined for one purpose and one goal, right? Uplift your race, really carrying on the power of our ancestors. And that's why the universe is able to sustain you, because you are doing the work. I also think like what is super important to like pump out here, um, you leaving right that science world and coming in front of these kids, um, the importance of that and the importance of a black man and a black male teacher being in front of our youth. And that spans from whether they were black, white, Latino, whoever. But to have a black man, who is knowledgeable, like in front of them, right? For some of them, they've never seen, never touched, never connected with that. And I feel like that's a true important point to point out, because we need more of you. We need
Facts.
more black male educators. We need more black educators, period. Which is the purpose of like this podcast, talking about how do we build that black educator pipeline.
Right. And shout out to my sister Misha Mosley, man. And
Yes, that's my
that's the
girl.
sis. I love her dearly. And
Black Teacher Project.
yeah, I should have rocked her t-shirt today, but she blessed me with this t-shirt. It's everybody needs a black teacher. It don't matter who you are. Everybody need a little taste of this black excellence. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you know, if you get a chance to experience black teaching, you see black excellence, because as a people, our excellence is always expressed when we choose to teach. You know,
Yes.
I write about this in Ratchetdemic. I'm like, anybody who truly engages in liberatory work, who is a black person, you realize that they find their authentic self when they first have walked in the classroom. Anybody who's affected change in the world first has taught. Now, for some of us, we teach for a season. For some of us, we teach for a lifetime. For some of us, we teach for one season, leave, and come back. But for you to be able to walk in the fullness of your greatness as a black person, you first have to be able to teach. And so everybody benefits when they get the opportunity to be able to see blackness in its fullest form. And blackness in its fullest form is when you get in touch with a black teacher. You know what I mean? And so shout to Misha, but shout to you for like articulating that in a brilliant way for folks to recognize that not just black folks benefit from black education
at all,
or black educators.
Everybody,
but rather everybody benefits because they get an opportunity to, you know, once you get the experience of being with a black educator in the classroom, it's the closest you can touch to magic.
Yep.
Because when we get to teaching and to preaching, woo, it's something different happening. You know what I mean? Like our voice inflections, our flow, our cadence, our storytelling, our metaphor, our analogy. You know, when you get to touch that, it's the closest you can get to the gods, man. So anyway, let me not get too hyped. I just think that the notion that everybody needs a black teacher should be celebrated and said more often. Not just for the sake of representation, but for the sake of everybody getting the chance to touch heaven. You know what I mean? For a little bit.
You're right. Everybody getting a chance to experience that and need that and understand, like you said, in its true authentic self, what blackness is, our culture, our pedagogies, our teachings, our traditions, like all of that. But one of the things we're running a campaign too called "We Need Black Teachers" that was started by our high school students. It's funny, right? As adults, we think we know so much. So we knew we needed a campaign to like really, again, restore that reverence to the profession, get young people interested in teaching. But for us, we're like, all right, how do we attract these young people? We're like, oh, we need to make up a dance about teachers and TikTok, blah, blah, just out here, just extra, like how we connect with the people. We wound up talking to the kids, and the kids is like, first of all, y'all, this is a serious matter, and we gonna be dancing and doing all this. We gonna tell the people straight up, we need black teachers, and that's going to be the premise of this campaign. So yes, thank you.
That's everything right there. And can I just underscore a point you made? And I think sometimes as a teacher, I can't get out of my teacher bag. And so as a teacher, I always lean towards like underscoring important points so that whoever's listening, the audience, the students don't miss it. You know what I mean? So like underscore the point. Adults are always late.
Yep.
Yo, we about to do this whole campaign. We got everybody. We have all these ideas. Let's get on tilt. And they're like, yo, fam, we over that. And so adults are always late. So for you to be able to be on time, you've got to tap into the heartbeat of young folks. And you can't do anything for young people without young folks in there engaging with and advising you in the process. And so I just want to underscore that moment. if you want to do something for kids, you'll always be a step or two late by virtue of the fact that you're not them. If you want to be on point, on time, and to touch your mission, you got to create spaces for them to be able to inform what you're doing. And most importantly, for them to be able to do it with you. Once you frame kids as experts, you're now on point. But the minute you're doing it for, but without,
yes,
you late. You know what I mean?
And
you about 3 hours late. You try to be culturally relevant. You 3 cultures late, beloved.
Not doing it with, and centering them and moving them and pushing them as leaders. Like sometimes we need to learn when to get out the way. And I think that we struggle with that. We need to get out the way. And I most certainly shout out to you for naming kids as experts. They are the experts of their own space, their own cultures, and their own identities. I would love to hear from you. You know, as a teacher, like that's a super important job, right? Like, and not just for all the things that people are like, oh yes, of course, because teachers are teaching the future leaders of the world. Yes. I don't think people understand how the importance and the, like what you hold with those young people in your classroom, right? And who they're going to be years from now after they left your classroom. The things you say, the things you do, all affect who they are as young beings. So why would you say it's so important that we recognize identities within the classroom?
Yo, you know what's so fire? I'm about to take it a different direction if you don't mind.
Do it.
I think sometimes we frame this like, you know, all the things that we do for young folks, and you know, the ways that we can inspire the next generation. And these are facts. You get into a classroom and you doing what you do, you realize that. But I'm gonna go somewhere else. We become teachers for us. A person becomes their best self when they choose to teach. See, like I frame not like what I am more than anything else is a youth-facing adult. So when I'm youth-facing, and that's like my primary identity, the way that I approach anything in the world shifts. Like when I know the babies are watching me, there's certain decisions I make that are different.
Yeah.
There's certain ways I move in the world that's different. I become my best self when I see myself first as a youth-facing person. Like when we teach to better them, but when we work with them, we better ourselves. And when we better ourselves, our community is uplifted. You know what I mean? So like, I just want us to remember that part. Like, yo, this is a fact. If you work with young folks and you change their lives, your legacy lives forever.
Never.
When you work with young folks and you really tap into that truth, the ways in which you can open up the possibilities for them is beyond. But guess what? Sometimes you got to understand that when you sacrifice your ego for the sake of working with young folks, your best self emerges. This is an old saying, right? It's a Buddhist phrase, and it says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And people all the time say that, like, it's like, yo, when them kids is ready, then I could teach. And there's levels and layers to it. It's when the adult who's been tagged as the teacher humbles themselves enough to allow the student within themselves to awaken. When the student is ready, meaning like for the adult, when the student within you is ready, then your teacher identity becomes prominent. So for me, it's like, yo, I get to be my best self because I work with young folks. Check this out. I'm 40 and some change, right? Like my energy is always on 1,000. People like, yo, Dr. E, how you get all this energy from? I'm tapped into the youth.
I was just going to say that. Why? Right?
Somebody could be 25 years old and be old as fuck. Excuse my language. It could be old as hell. Like, you know, you talk to like your fam. When were you raised? Like your energy is old. Your ideas are old. Your swag is antiquated. Your personality look like you about 900. Like your whole like and so like even when we talk about like having more black teachers, I want more black teachers, but I don't want no more black cornballs. Like we could have a whole bunch of black teachers and they be swaggerless and they don't work. Like so I don't want that either. I'm just saying like when you're tapped in to the energy of young folks, you age, but you never grow old.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like
I tell people that all the time. The youth is what keeps me young. And when you say, I love the phrase that you use, and we need to use that more because it helps people understand their perspective when they operate in education. I am a youth-facing adult. Yes. So if you're a youth-facing adult, that is going to like design how you actually show up in spaces. You're going to show up youth-centered, youth-minded, and thinking about all the decisions that we make. How is this going to affect this population? And you see yourself as a youth-facing adult because you also see yourself as an advocate for kids. And I think that everybody kind of thinks about, like, I mean, aren't we all in it for the children to a degree? But are you an advocate for these kids? Are you a youth-facing adult? Or you think about in your building, if you're administration, are you youth-facing or are you teacher-centered? Right? And some people are
Are
like,
you
no,
institution centered? Make that distinction too. Because some folks teach, but they're about supporting the infrastructure, the institution. And you could be supporting the institution and be against the babies.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I also want to make a distinction, which is really important, because I don't want folks to get this twisted. I said youth-facing adult. I didn't say youth-facing young person. Like, you gotta own where you at. You know what I mean? Like, own your age. Like, I'm an elder. You know what I mean? I ain't no baby. It's not about that 30's the new 24. Like, I'm trying to swim in the sexy of this 40 plus. Like, I own that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I could still be tapped in. You know what I mean? Because there's another issue is where, like, I work with the young folks, so I gotta act like them. Like, I ain't trying to act like them. I'm trying to advocate for them. I'm trying to love on them, but I'm trying to sit in where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to not rock these tweed blazers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to be graceful in where I'm at.
You grown,
but still be advocating for them. I'm not trying to chase them. I'm not trying to be like them. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I mean? But I like them. Yeah, that's a whole other.
I'm not trying to be like them. I like them.
You know
I love that. Yo, that's dope. But you're right. And people need to understand that distinction. Like, walk in your purpose. We are still grown adults. I love that you're owning that you're an elder. I'm still struggling with that. I still want them to call me Sister Shayna. I'm not ready for that Mama Shayna yet. Like, I'm still like, wait, y'all, I ain't at the mama stage yet.
No, the minute they call you it, you gotta lean in. Let me get a little humor in here real quick. Like, let me tell you something about, like, so when I turned 21 was the first time that my hairline was like, nah, I ain't rocking with you no more. right. And so I had the little, you know what I mean? And it was so funny because I remember as a young person, I would see a bunch of like older cats where the hairline is doing what it do. You know what I mean? You know, the graze is peeking in, whatever. And they'd be like dying a joint, or they'd try to, like, you know, finesse it. I'm like, yo, you gotta lean in. Once nature tells you where you at, you gotta lean in. You know what I'm saying? Once the hairline was going, I just rocked the baldy. You know what I'm saying? Once 2 or 3 students started saying Uncle Chris or OG Chris, I'm like, I ain't gonna fight that. I'm gonna lean into my OG. So when you're getting the messages of where you've been positioned, don't chase that. You gotta lean in and do it well. You know what I mean?
I gotta let the people call me Mama Shayna, child. I'm
let them call you it. Like, be the flyest mama out there. They call you Mama Shayna. Oh, you know what? I'm Mama Shayna. Okay, let me show you how fly the Mama Shayna's gonna be. You know what I mean? You gotta walk into your season with grace, beloved.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. But I love how you're spending this. I really love the connections that you're making, especially about the youth. People, you're an adult, so use your lean into being an adult and your power, but stay tapped into the young people and be youth facing. I think that's a super important message for educators out there and people wanting to come into the profession. Because I think, again, people have this idea of, like, I'm grown, I don't need to tap into young people. I tell this story a lot too. Like, I remember coming into education, and you know, sometimes you deal with vets or people who are wounded from the wars of education. And I remember, like, being super happy, super positive with kids, and somebody's like, "We're not supposed to be smiling in the first week." How you working with young people and children and feel like I'm not supposed to be joyful? Like, they kids.
Those are unhappy people, man. I think unhappy people have found ways to have their personalities be embedded in the narratives around teaching. And it's not what teaching is, but it's the narratives that have been constructed by folks who are not really called to do it or don't have the drive to do it. So they be like, nah, you don't smile to the room because that's what we do. Nah, that's not what we do. That's what you do, right? That's what them lames do. But us right here, we operate in a place of love and joy and passion. Yes. And I love that you mentioned that, because, like, so not the last 2 journals I wrote for white folks who teach in the hood, there's a whole section just on that, right? There's a whole section where I talk about, like, don't smile to November, you know, make sure you put the right structures in, you know, the kids need you to be a disciplinarian. No, they don't need all that. Like the kids need me to be my authentic self. They need me to have joy so the joy can be contagious. And those are like rules of engagement that are from people who don't have that joy in their lives. But that's not what teaching is about. Don't define a profession of freedom by your pessimism. Nah, Sway. We ain't
Or
doing
folks
that.
who have this perception of what discipline for Black children looks
Man.
like and
So
how
talk
Black
about that a little bit more, because that's fire.
well, it's the truth. There's a strong perception of how Black children need to be controlled or
Mm-hmm.
policed or
Mm-hmm.
treated inside schools. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was a lot of the perspective that was being pushed on me as a disciplinarian. I'm just like, no, there's a way to discipline and have consequences and have balance and love and joy. Like that's how you groom strong, emotionally healthy young
Oof,
people. It's
talk.
not jail. I'm not the cops. Like that's not what my job is here to be. I'm here to help young people learn. I'm here
Oof.
to coach young people through their mistakes because
Mm.
everybody makes mistakes. And this
Talk
is
your
the age
talk.
that they're supposed to be making mistakes. So my
Mm.
job is to make sure they learn, coach them through mistakes, and make sure that they got the lesson out of it. But I'm the person who's supposed to be there to help them get up when they fall. Like that is my job. But most of all with school, who wants to come to a place where they don't love it? Who wants to come to a place where they don't enjoy it? Who wants to
Talk.
come to a place where they don't feel affirmed or don't feel like they're at home? That's what school, they spend 8 hours a day, some kids 9 hours a day. That's what it should feel like for every single child who's
Mm.
inside of a school. So the premise that
Hashtag heavy bars. Like that what you just dropped right there. If I was online right now, I would say hashtag heavy bars. And we can't say that enough, sis. Like every time somebody gets to this point, and not everybody gets to this point, but anytime
Mhm.
anybody I'm speaking to are like articulate that point about the need for Black freedom as an
Yes.
anchor of how we teach Black children, I shut up and let them flow because we've not heard that enough in the world. And no matter how many times we hear it, it's never enough times.
Yep.
Because
Black
that is
freedom
the
is
anchor
Black
of it
joy.
all.
People need
Yeah,
to
and you
understand
know,
that.
a lot of these
It's not
cats say, well,
all about
look,
the struggle. Black freedom is Black joy.
it
And people
is.
need to coincide both of those together as well.
If you don't talk to them, you know what I mean? And it will say to like, we got to prepare them for the real world. Nah, that's not the real world. That's
It
a
is
fabrication of what the real world is.
facts.
You don't want to prepare them for the real world. You want to prepare them for a world that has already existed, that was constructed on the notion of Black helplessness, loss, and brokenness.
It
So you're
is.
preparing them for a definition of the world, and I'm preparing them for a world as it should be. Are you
Yes.
preparing them for the real world as it is?
Yep.
That feasts on Black brokenness?
To
Or are you
me.
preparing them for a world as it should be, that they're going to be the ones who constructs? And I think that's the difference. So when they're like, we got to prepare them for the real world. Now you trying to prepare them for you trying to prepare them for a world that's attached to Black brokenness. I'm trying to
Yep.
prepare them for a futurist legacy of where Black joy is at the anchor. What side you
Where
on?
we want to be and what we want to build and what you should be experiencing.
Facts.
And I think
Talk
that
to them, sis.
people struggle with that. I want to switch gears real quick though, because I want to make sure we got enough time to talk about everybody and everything. I would love to really talk about ratchetdemics. Would you
Mm.
please talk to us about that term, the term ratchetdemics, and explain the framework behind that?
First of all, now you sign me up to do the shameless plug. You know what I mean? Hold up.
Listen,
Da, da, da,
bro,
da.
both of us,
Da,
okay?
da, da, da.
Nobody
Yeah.
said
Like,
nothing wrong
talk
with
to him. You know what I mean? Yo, okay. So Ratchetdemic is, of course, my new book, Reimagining Academic Success. If y'all listening, go cop that. It's fire. But the notion behind Ratchetdemic is a response to the existing structure of schools that says that being academic or intellectual has to look, sound, or behave in a particular way, right? It's a notion that, like, if you're an academic or an intellectual or you're a serious student, then you've got to walk a certain way. You got to talk a certain way. You got to answer questions a certain way. You've got to raise your hands and be appropriate and be like it's an established notion that says for Black children to be intellectual or academic, they have to learn how to perform white norms. Or if not white norms, they have to learn to perform a subjugation of the authentic identities to be seen as smart. And historically, Black expressiveness, Black joy, Black liberation has always been attached to our ability to let go of pretense and operate with truth. And oftentimes that's been identified as ratchetness. Like, and Black women in particular have been assaulted with the moniker of being ratchet, right? Like, she's so loud, she's so ratchet, she's so extra, she's so ratchet. And for me, it was an intentional decision to name it Ratchetdemic, because a lot of, like, I was talking to some brothers, and brothers was like, yo, but like, that's real gangster. Name the shit Gangsterdemic. And I'm like, nah, this is not Gangsterdemic. It's a claim ratchetness, right? a thing our sisters have been framed as, to wear that as a badge of honor for all of us as Black folks. You know what I mean? And so to be ratchet is to be a little extra, to be a little verbose, to be a little bit colorful, to be a little bit expressive, to a little bit loud, to be a little bit free, to be a little bit performative. You know what I mean? Like just but when you see young people who express that before they open their mouths, before they can show you what they know, before they can share their potential with you, schools will say, "Oh, those kids are not intelligent. They're not ready for school. They're so ratchet. They're not ready." And so, ratchetemic is about constructing a new identity, putting on a new framework, turning on a new lens that says that we and our babies can be equal parts ratchet and academic. Ratchetemic is a re-theorizing of the landscape of education that says that Black excellence looks swaggy, sounds extra, that the merit of what we offer the world is not predicated on our respectability, that our excellence is not predicated on our subjugation. You know what I mean? That our intelligence is not requiring us to be endorsed by how an institution sees we should be, but rather to say that we can do what institutions want us to. We could be smart. Like, I'm not trying to like talk about me, but we're in a season where we talk about us, right?
Yes.
I'm degreed up. You know what I mean? Like, people can say what they want to say about me. They could say, "Oh, he's a little loud, he's a little much, he's a little extra." Say whatever you want, but guess what? I'm degreed all the way up. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, so there's nobody that follows an intellectual and academic tradition that you could put in front of me and make me feel less than. I got what they got. I got all the degrees they got. I don't work at the Ivy League institutions. I done did all the things that them cats you could put in front of me got. But guess what I got that they ain't got? This sauce.
This swag, okay?
This swag. Yes. This hoodness. Yep. This loudness. And this extraness. And these bars. And so I can be me and beat them at their game at the same damn time. Yep. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I think that our babies don't know that yet. They know we love them. If they're lucky, they get a good Black educator that says that they're loved, right? Yeah. We get a good Black educator that says, you smart. You could do something. We always tell our babies, I see something in you. You can get there. No one ever says to them, you are there. Mm-hmm. And so to be ratchetemic is to let young folks know, listen, you ain't got to sacrifice no piece of who you are to be able to get these degrees. Yep. You got all that genius in you already. And all we're doing is creating a context to allow you to be able to reveal what already exists. Yes. And so ratchetemic for me is a new theoretical framework. It's a new approach to education that is intentionally disruptive of the status quo that says that excellence and intelligence only looks a particular way. Yeah. And in the book, I write about, I'm sorry if I'm taking a little time, but in the book, I write about the roots of the notion that we got to choose. Like where that comes from, this plantation pedagogy that we have inherited, that we play out in contemporary schools with Black children. So I think about where that idea comes from. I think about why it's important for us to be able to push back beyond it. And I give examples of ways that we can operate with a more ratchetemic identity that reimagines academic success. So that's what ratchetemic is, the framing, the sensibility that requires a new way of existing in the world so we can walk into our genius as we are.
No, I love that. And it's funny because sometimes I feel like thinking about it in that way. I mean, I can already tell from the comments and tell from my own reaction to it, right? You're giving voice to a lot of the struggles that us as Black people have, in a sense. Just shout out to one man's books here.
Please that's love. Thank y'all for throwing them joints on there. And real quick, keep them up real quick. I hope y'all peep, like ratchetemic is called Reimagining Academic Success. The other joint, STEM, STEAM, Make, Dream, because I'm a scientist and work in STEM, like that book is called STEM, STEAM, Make, Dream, Reimagining Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So I like ratchetemic is for us to get the philosophy of how to do it in the world. Then I'm like, yo, how do we do this in science and tech and engineering and math? Even when we get to the point where we tell our babies that they're genius, we don't tell them that they're scientists. We don't tell them that we're mathematicians. We don't tell them that they're engineers. So ratchetemic and STEM, STEAM, Make, Dream, I put them out at the same time because I want to embody the idea of like, who says I got to do one book at once? I'm going to do 2 books. What you gonna get mad? Yeah. You know what I mean? Ratchetemic is a larger grand philosophy. STEM, STEAM, Make, Dream is how you do that in STEM and in STEAM. So thanks for putting that up there. Yes. And my process, I ain't going to cut you off, but I seen them joints, so I got to, I have to elaborate.
I love it. And I love how you're like, who said I can't put out 2 books at once? Yes, I can, because I was in his lab. I was writing. Holla.
Facts.
So I love I love that. But what I was gonna say is just all of that you're speaking of, like you're giving voice to, I think, a lot of struggles that people have within this education system, or Black people who are working in what is called, it's a white dominated field. Let's just call it what it is.
Facts.
But I've been judged so many times. I'm from the South Bronx, right? Grew up, born and raised from projects, St. Mary's Project. Shout out to my family. But one thing, like when I'm in spaces, I always say, when people like tell me about yourself, so I'm like, what is a good description I can give, right? One of the things I lead with, I'm like, yo, I'm a hood rat. And
Talk.
people will look at me crazy, but I'm like, I know what that means, right? And I'm not saying that I'm a hood rat in terms of like, yes, I got it out, I made it. At the heart of who I am, like I am hood, right? Like I
Talk.
understand, I connect with that, like all of that. And I don't think that I should hide that. I don't think that I should shy away from that. That is the identity of who I am. I want other kids, I want younger kids who are looking at me to be proud of who they are and where they come from, and don't think that when you make it to a certain point, that's an identity that you have to shed, be embarrassed by. And it's also not, I don't want people like, oh my God, you made it out the projects. I mean, people are going to make it out of anywhere, struggle, like I'm Black. This is what I do at the end of the day.
And there's always another struggle if you Black in America. I mean, let's talk about that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you like, I made it out the projects. Oh yeah, they're gonna put another barrier. It is what it is. And what we are as a people is that. Fact. And I love what you said about the hood rat, because it's like, yo, you're like, I'm a hood rat. What does that mean? It means I know how to make something out of nothing. It knows I know how to navigate multiple circumstances. It means I know what the taste and feel of poverty is, and able also to be able to walk with kings. It means I'm able to be able to understand different perspectives. It means I know how to operate with noise in the background and still concentrate. It means I'm multimodal. Like, being from the hood, these are gifts. Are you tripping?
But that's what I'm proud. You know what I mean?
And so I think, like, I love that you embrace that.
Always, because I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to try to portray to be something that I'm not. And I think that premise of like what ratchetdemics is, and it also, like, yes, I'm from the hood, super educated, like you said, bro. I'm degreed up.
Degreed up. You already.
But I've been through a struggle that you never will understand and never been through, and that's why folks like you and I can connect with young people. But other thought after reading and taking a look at ratchetdemics is, for you and your perspective, do you think that this is another framework or another lens of cultural proficiency? Like, do you think that fits in there?
It's a contribution. Like, you know, it's not a replacement. It's not it's not an update. It's a contribution. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, you know, a Eurocentric way of existing in the world is to replace. That's what they've always done. Yep. This is done. Now it's that. Now it's that. There's a linearity in a Eurocentric tradition that says that a theory replaces an existing theory, that says a new idea replaces an old idea, and there's a cancellation of the benefits of what other contributions have been for the sake of endorsing a new one. So I never draw from a Eurocentric tradition that is more linear, a Bakhtinian notion of chronotypic time spans that's about replacement. I just want to contribute to the knowledge. You know what I mean? I just want to add a little, you know what I mean? I just want to add a little ingredient to the sauce to make it more sweet. And so cultural proficiency is a goal. Ratchetdemics is a framework that can support that goal. And I think that we all come from different vantage points, those who theorize, for the sake of making the picture more clear. So I ain't never been about this is the thing that I've also struggled with in just the education world, particularly with folks who are credentialed in education. Like they've sucked from the breast of white supremacist structure so much that they don't know how to function with another type of meal that provides them with more nutrition. And so they be like, people are always like, so Dr. Emdin, what side you on? You ride with them or them? You a public or you a charter? You are this theory or you are that theory? I'm like, yo, fam, I'm not with none of that. I'm with liberation for our babies.
Yep.
And contributing to the body of knowledge to make the world be able to be seen in a more robust way. So the short answer to a thoughtful way, a long way to get to it is, I just want to add a little flavor to the game to give folks a different perspective. I think that Ratchetdemic as a framework is something that does not exist in a really fluid and palatable way in the existing literature. And it adds a new framework to give us a different perspective. And it supports a lot of existing frameworks of some brilliant scholars that have come before me, that are existing now and will come after. You know what I mean? So, shout out to, the Gloria Lats and Billingses of the world, and
Yes.
you know what I mean, like
She was on
mostly
the show. Gloria Lester
politics,
Bills on the
like
show. Go Deep Behind
Carol
Me was on the
Lee, Geneva
show.
Gay. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Let's talk about our brothers who are in the, like Naeem Akbar. Like they're folks who done the work. I ain't trying to say them joints is useless. I'm just saying I want to contribute. That's all.
Yes, a different perspective and a different framework to it. But I love what you said about folks sucking on the breast of white supremacy.
Mm.
Um, and I think that the reason why I like that, because I do think it's an important kind of thought to lift up, because a lot of your critics or folks who may feel a kind of way, does that in your mind mean like folks are always looking for opposition to white supremacy and that's how they're functioning within their work? Meaning like if they can't argue about something that comes from a white supremacist ideal or value, then like where's their substance? Like is
Yo,
that
woo, like that's such an essential piece of what I want to put forth in the world that you touched on. I want to put like 95 billion stars by that. It's like, look, I can engage in a conversation that critiques white supremacist structures all day long. Like it's an easy thing to do. But here's the thing. My framework and identity is not predicated on censoring white supremacy as the thing to consistently counter. Like I know it's there. And if I need to, metaphorically punch a white supremacist in the mouth, I'm gonna do that with my words. You know what I mean? And with my frameworks, but I don't require their existence to give me sustenance. And Ratchetdemic names the history, but it also says I just want to love on me, and I don't need you to be what like that. That's my argument oftentimes with a lot of language that we've adopted. And again, I want folks to also operate like if I say something that comes off as critical of a dominant framework, and those of us who do work with Black children, it's not for the sake of saying I'm anti that. I just want to offer a perspective that folks may take or leave. But like recently, I've taken issue with a lot of framing around Black liberation pedagogies that censors itself on a use of language of our underhandedness. I'll give you an example. Like, folks be like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, we gotta conspire. We gotta find the co-conspirators to be able to counter the like to conspire is to do something underhanded, secretive, and illegitimate. So I get where it comes from because we've had to do that for so long. I'm tired of conspiring. I'm tired of being a fugitive in the pursuit of my emancipation. I'm tired of utilizing language that frames me as problematic and criminal in a pursuit of my freedom. So I just want to be free and Black. I just want to be ratchetdemic. And yes, I have to function within institutions that were constructed to not allow me to be my free self. But we are at a collective season as Black folks where we no longer have to conspire to do this work. We just be. You know what I mean? Like I'm just ratchetdemic because I am. You know what I mean? And if you don't like it, you be a fugitive. If you don't like it, you can like them folks gotta conspire to stop this Black freedom. The Black freedom just exists because of its magic. And so I just offer that as a new lens because sometimes we might have to conspire, but I don't want the act of conspiring and underhandedness to be the chief method through which we frame our identity. I think there are seasons to conspire, but our existence is operating in a ratchetdemic freedom liberatory moment. Yes. And so like that like I want us to understand that. Like put on a hat for a moment in season, but don't wear it so much that you rob yourself of the opportunity for another fly outfit. You know what I mean? Like that's real talk. Like, you swaggerless, so you rocking the same hat all day long. Like, I'm a hat guy, right? Like there's levels and seasons for this. You know what I mean? Like the reason I'm rocking this blue joint today, because I was gonna rock a brown joint because I got brown in the blazer. I'm gonna like the blue joint with the little brown,
with the little brown,
the blue brown tan for this season. If I rock this with an outfit that don't match, it don't mean my hat has less value, but it ain't fit for this. You know what I mean? This hat ain't ready for this outfit.
Yes.
So sometimes you use a certain language for a particular season, and then the season shifts. You've got to switch the hat up to match the new outfit. You know what I mean? And so I want us all to understand that when we adopt theoretical frameworks are just that, frameworks. But if the season shifts, you must adopt a new framework for the new season. Otherwise, you out here in these streets with a fly hat, but it don't match your outfit. You know what I mean? And we always, you know how we do as Black folks. You know what I mean? If the fit ain't fly, you know what I'm saying, and you got to go back to get a new supply. You
Yes.
heard? Like, you got to go
No,
back to the start.
I was about to say we just gotta go switch it up, but I love that. If the fit ain't fly, you got to go get a new supply. Yes.
Facts.
Gotta match it up. Gotta have people attracted out here. Then the other thought process I was thinking about when I'm thinking about academics is, and I would love, I know how, but I would love for you to talk about how is this connected to Black teaching pedagogy, and in what ways do you feel like it is?
Well, at the essence of Black teaching pedagogy is all of this. And I think that it's got eroded over time as a function of the structure of the institution.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, like in my book, I write about Pentecostal pedagogy. And the first time I introduced that concept at an academic conference, they were like, "What is this? Is he trying to make us all Christians?" I'm like, "Nah, that's not what I'm trying to do." Like, I'm a man of a particular faith, but I also have a reverence for folks who have other pathways to the divine. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't about that. But historically, Black folks, Black preachers and teachers were so interchangeable, we couldn't tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And most often those who taught were also those who preached.
Yep.
And why do I say that? I say that to say, if you study the Black Pentecostal tradition in particular, you get the insights into our ideal pedagogical approach. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Sis? Okay,
amen.
So in that alone, in that moment, right? Can I get an amen? Amen. Call and response, right?
Yep.
Right? Not a choir director to play the music, the notion of musicality. You know what I'm saying? We all gonna stop for a second and just catch this Holy Ghost so we can breathe free for a second. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go back to the scripture and we're gonna read. We're gonna leave the scripture and shout hallelujah. And if you look at those moments, what you're seeing is not just a teaching, a preaching exemplar. What you're seeing is a pedagogical practice, a very expressive, a very performance arts oriented approach to engaging with others. Yes. So that framework has already existed in our lineage. Now, over time, when we entered into other folks' institutions, they've now given us masks to put on that affect the way we dance, right? Mm-hmm. So, curriculum is a mask. Lesson plans are masks. Standards are masks.
All of that.
If you put on a particular mask, that mask will dictate how you dance. So we're just saying we want to take off the mask of the oppressor so we can have the time for liberatory practice. Liberatory practice pedagogically is anchored in how we engage with each other from the beginning of time.
I was just going to say that, all rooted in African tradition.
All Afrocentric. I mean, we didn't even go to the West African talking drum and the drum circles that our folks would do in Ghana and Nigeria. When the talking drum gets to moving, and folks when people hear the drum, they know to all come. Once they all come, then they position themselves in circles. Once they position themselves in circles, then they all partake. As they all partake, they share words. As they share words, they exchange words. And that's how information is passed. The drum circle on a continent is a pedagogical moment that we need to incorporate into how we teach our babies. Sometimes our babies are not connected academically or intellectually, not because they don't have the potential or the ability, but because we've adopted a framework for information delivery that is rooted in that of our oppressor and not in our own liberation. Mm-hmm. So, we must draw from our own practices again. And that's why I'm always for this ratchetemic approach, because ratchetemic is it's a crack in the door to allow us to open up all we know that has existed. Yes. You know what I mean? It's just like, let me look in there. Oh shit, there's a whole lot over there we ain't even looking at yet. Hold up. Let's, I even in the book Ratchetemic, what I did throughout the book, right? Like I would just drop certain things that I knew some folks would resonate with and some folks wouldn't get. Like there's so many in that book. There's a lot of like, if you know moments. I'm gonna leave that there. If you know, I'm gonna leave that there. Go find that later, because I didn't want to write a book that was the answer. I wanted to write a book that was cracks in the door so that folks who were like, "Ooh, I like that. Let me go dig deeper," could write the next book. I don't write a book to be the final answer. I write a book to offer breadcrumbs for those who want to find their own answers.
And like you said,
because I'm a teacher at the end of the day, and that's teaching.
You're a contributor, yes.
Yeah,
I'm not the end all be all in this, right? Like contributor, but you also make a fine point, and I want to link this in because we can't leave here without talking some hip hop. Like we just can't.
You know that's my area now.
So one of the things I thought about when I'm thinking about teaching, connecting young people, and the evolution of hip hop.
Yeah.
How does the evolution of hip hop affect a teacher's ability to connect with students? Meaning, you got people who consider themselves to be hip hop heads, right? Mm-hmm. Which is fine. But if you still in the Big Daddy Kane era, you know what I'm saying? Or the Cool D era, but even let's say you transition out of that and you move into the Drake, DMX, Jay-Z era. We are now moving into a whole new era.
That drill moment is
It,
fire. Yeah.
Drill, NBA Young, like all of that, all of those people, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think that affects a teacher's ability to connect with students when you talk about old school versus new school?
See, to be hip hop is to evolve. It's to travel, it's to move, it's to be flexible, it's to be nimble. And we're all going to have a certain endearment for the arenas of our youth.
Mm-hmm.
Nostalgia is the sweetest thing you could find. Close to love, one of the most powerful things in the planet is nostalgia. Love will knock you off your feet and have you doing things you didn't know what was going. You don't know what's going on. Love will lift you up, drop you down, spin you around, right? But
Yes.
nostalgia is close. Because what nostalgia allows you to do is it allows you to highlight the most beautiful moments of an experience that was more complex than the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, when I was a kid, we used to just look. No, when you was a kid, they was tripping too. When I was a kid, we could hear all the things the rappers were saying. No, when you was a kid, there was also DOS effects. Bum stickety bum was not a real word. When I was a kid, we was just all positive. No, not quite. They was. So it's like nostalgia will have you highlighting your best moments and erasing the complexity of the Black experience.
Yes.
So what you want to do is you don't want to be seduced by nostalgia. You want to evolve with hip hop, staying hip and being able to hop to the next moment. Right?
I like that. Yep.
Yeah, you want to be hip, which is that you always tapped in, and you're always ready to hop into the next moment.
Next moment.
And so the next moment is they got a different energy. And here's the thing: nostalgia will have you celebrating your past, but it will also have you denigrating the beauty of the present.
Of the present.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like I was one of those because I'm a 90s baby. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like so I'm a Nas.
I was gonna say,
Early
actually, the
Hov.
top 5 dead of alive. You're gonna have Nas in there, you have Biggie, you have Tupac.
Come on now.
You know what
So
I'm
that's
saying?
I'm with the lyricist, and like I love bars, right? So I love like MF Doom, like more obscure artists. And so I remember, the first time I heard like Takeoff Offset in them, and they had a very comparative to the hyper technical lyrical era. It seemed like a simplistic, like as far as like the multi-syllables in the words they pronounce over rhythms, it seemed simplistic. So I used to like, these kids ain't got no bars. And then I was reading and studying Negro spirituals and sayings in the 1800s. So like it would be like the kind of spirituals that the enslaved would share with each other when the master was doing some corny stuff, right? Like, for example, there's like white folks go to church, they can't crack a smile. A nigga go to church, you're gonna smile for a while. Like that was like a thing that they would say in the slave quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started realizing that the cadence of contemporary hip hop was more aligned to the cadence of the Negro spiritual of our ancestors than the 90s hip hop that was multi-syllables that I loved. Mm-hmm. And so these kids are actually tapped into an ancestral rhythm that is beyond the folks I love. And so you always got to be able to hop into seeing the genius in our babies.
Seeing the beauty in
it. And so you got to evolve, because you could be a hip hop educator and still be stuck in an era. And then you're not hip or hopping to the new moment. So, and when we say we're culturally relevant and culturally responsive, it means that we have to always consistently evolve. So for me, it's always seeing the genius in what, this is one of my favorite quotes. It was never my favorite quote. I was talking to somebody once and I said it and they were like, yo, you said some shit, I was wow. And then I had to go back and reflect on something I said. But it was like, yo, the path to our freedom is hidden in the souls of our children. And the reason why we haven't gotten as free as we should is because we're always trying to construct what the path will be, but it's hidden in the souls of our children. So if you want us to get the liberation, you got to dissect and interrogate what's in the soul of our children. If you tap into the genius of that drill and find that ancestral cadence, we're closer to freedom than if we are trying to construct the answers in our, in the eras we're nostalgic about.
You right there with that, and even cracking the souls of our young people. And again, unlocking the potential and then getting out the way and letting them lead. Right? Like that's the next move in that. Like unlock it. Don't unlock it and you be trying to be the voice of it or the driver of it. Let the young people do their thing. But I love the point you made. The reason why I asked that old school versus new school is because a lot of times we are stuck in our nostalgia, but then that then drives us to like down, degrade, or talk about young people's culture and youth culture, which could create a large divide. Or
Yeah.
not even working to understand. Okay, you don't like the way it sounds, you don't like what they're saying, but work your way into understanding why this music is being made the way it's made. Why are young people connecting so closely and intently to this particular artist? Teach young people to love music, but maybe not a lifestyle, like all of that stuff.
And teach them
Like,
to create too. Like we
yes,
missed that part too. Whatever it is that our babies consume, they can also create.
yes,
So if
very,
they're consuming a whole bunch of drill and a bunch of like, and that's where they tapped into, like that's why I did Science Genius. Let's talk about Science Genius. Like Science Genius is an initiative I started. We had young folks writing rhymes about science and mathematical content. And I never tell the kids what beats to rhyme to or what cadence to rhyme to. I just like, if you can rap about that, then you can rap about something else. And if you can't rap about something else, can you really rap? And once you challenge our babies, they be like, word. So it's like, yo, and so they're creating like, you know, Brooklyn drill or Chicago drill to science. And so if you're consuming trash, you can create magic. But you got to, first of all, as an educator, welcome what you perceive to be problematic so they can have a different appetite. You know, you want to expand their palate.
yeah, I think that's dope. And I'm like in my mind, like, yo, I'm just dying to hear something. They science raps the drill. New time,
Yo, they be killing it.
let's get it. What?
Oh,
I'm
you know
like in my mind,
what
like,
I mean?
yes, that's amazing. That's super dope. Listen, of course, like as always with my guests, like it's a conversation, so we like wind down on time and don't even know it's going as daggone fast.
It's all
But what
love.
I do want to give you an opportunity to do before we leave here is to thank a Black teacher. So we
Yeah.
are definitely going to roll into our Black teacher segment right now. So the floor is yours to go ahead and thank a Black teacher
You
or
know
Black.
what? Of experience, like throughout my K through 12 experience, I had one Black teacher, a science teacher when I was in the 9th grade, and she was not memorable. Like I had to think hard to be like, did I have a Black teacher? Because she was just like everybody else. And so I never had a Black teacher in my K through 12 experience, and I feel like I suffered for it. And when I say I never had a Black teacher, I had a Black person in phenotype, but I never had a Black teacher.
All skin folk and kinfolk.
Facts. But I will say this, that I've had teachers that were not in that experience, that folks who've taught me things in my life. You know what I mean? Like the best Black teacher I ever had was my mama, who loved on me and told me I was a genius and I was brilliant and told me I could do anything I wanted to. I wanted to write stories. She bought me paper and told me, I said, I want to be an artist. She let me draw. She said, I wanted to rap. She said, I don't like the rap stuff, but go ahead and go do it anyway. And she always gave me the license to be able to express my genius. And so the Black teacher I like to thank the most is my mom.
What's her name?
Lilith Hepzibah Emdin.
Yes.
Because she unlocked the magic in me that never. And you know, I want to also thank like my OG, Glory Latson Billings. It's a woman who's a living icon, and who just decided she was going to take me under her wing. Ain't have to. Then you know, I call her my academic mama. And like my dream is to one day have her meet my real life mama. But just say, you know what, I think that kid, I don't know what she said, but I think that kid got something. All right, you know, respond to my emails and gave me advice, and supported me and write things about my books when she ain't have to. So I want to thank GLB, the OG, also.
Yes.
So yeah, those are my two Black teachers that I give the most love to.
That's dope. And shout out to Gloria Lasson Billings. She is a friend of the show. She came on the show. And I always thank people like you and her, folks who like early in this situation, y'all know me. And y'all coming on, showing love to a space in Black educators and building a Black educator pipeline. Like this is so appreciative. Like I really do appreciate it.
You know why all them folks come on your show?
Why?
Because real recognize real.
I appreciate that.
I'm telling you, let's just be straight up. You know, it ain't everybody who'd be like, you know, I'm gonna go rock out for. But you know, those who are tapped in, those other folks who are tapped in. You know, I be straight up. Like, I don't just be giving talks and speeches just for like whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I've been so abused by the institutions that I've attached myself to.
Speak on
that
that.
now I be like Hope sometimes. You know what I mean? I like, like I'm overcharging for what they did to the cold crush. You know what I'm saying? I do my fat Joe. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Like, 'cause they done abused me for too long.
Yes.
But with
Yes.
that being said, when your
Yes.
folks call, you know what it is. You know what I
You
mean? When
do
them
that.
babies call, I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yes.
But these are facts. And so I want to love on you for a minute.
I appreciate that.
Your passion is infectious,
Thank
right?
you.
There's a je ne sais quoi that you hold that makes folks want to be able to share and join and share on this platform. That's a reflection of your truth. So keep being truth and keep being light.
I appreciate that. I really, really do. I be struggling to take compliments, but I'm getting better. But I really, really, really appreciate
Swim in
that.
that, swim in that, swim in that. We don't love on each other enough.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. So, Doc, before we go, I like to give my guests the parting word. We appreciate you being out here and talking to these people. You understand? Like we and taking the time to share your knowledge, to share your joy, to share your information. But final word to the guests and the folks out there watching today. So with you, bro.
Yo, don't worry, just teach. There's always a reason for you not to do what you know is right to do. Always. It could be political, it could be economical, it could be whatever else. There's always a reason for you not to do what you know is right to do. Don't worry, just teach. You know what I mean? And yo, cop these books, man. Like
yes.
Academic, Reimagining Academic Success. And for me, it's like I've gotten to the point where I'm not afraid to advocate for what I know is right, even if it's my joint, because them other folks ain't scared to push their trash. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I know I got something good to offer. So Academic, Reimagine Academic Success. If you're into the STEM, STEAM, make, dream, you know what I mean, about how to create new possibilities in academia in these disciplines. But don't worry, just teach. Be academic, STEM, STEAM, make, dream. That's it.
Yes. Dr. Emdin, we thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Like mad love to you. Y'all heard my brother go out and get his books. I have the book. So like, let's do this and continue to support each other. And for all my people out there watching this week, we appreciate you. We'll be back next week. Same place, same time. Thank you for joining the Black Educator Pipeline Podcast. Peace, y'all.
Peace and love, y'all.